So, 2 nights ago, Queen Media Collective invited me to join them for a live discussion on depression, coping versus healing. And I've been thinking a lot about that since the other night. So, for the past 48 hours, roughly. It was a great discussion. I am most impressed with the panel of young people, young to me, millennials who are doing the work, who are vested in doing the work and connecting with others who are doing the work so that we can address ending generational dysfunction, this cyclical thing that can keep us bound um, in our communities and our families, regardless of economic standing, regardless of civic standing. This dysfunction sits like an elephant in the living room, and we just walk around it. So I'm so glad to be connected with people who are doing the work. And I want to shout out my queen sis, Charlotte Carpenter, for connecting me with Sister Sade, who is working to bring awareness to um, the need for a discussion around um, ending pedophilia and shutting pedophiles down in our community. As a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, I certainly appreciate that. So, anyway, back to why I'm on right now as well, which is to say that that discussion on depression, coping versus healing really brought out some things, and I find myself being triggered tonight. So I'm just being transparent about what that looks like and how I actually use a toolkit full of positive coping skills um, when I am triggered, as I most certainly am right now. So during that talk 2 nights ago, and we were on for about 2 hours, we covered a lot of ground. And when we talk about depression, when we talk about anxiety, when we talk about mental illness at all, we have to include triggers, which are things that can just put you back into a moment. And again, how important it is to have um, coping skills on hand. One of my go tos for coping is to write a poem. Um, but with this situation, I am making this video. So, the backstory. As a childhood survivor of, or a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, the journey for healing has been ongoing probably for about the last, I want to say, 20 years at least. A lot was awakened um, 11 years ago or 12 years ago when I started a MFA program in creative nonfiction writing at Antioch University in Los Angeles. That program also sent me into, I couldn't, I just got stuck. I couldn't write, and I needed to write, but I hit a wall, and like I just was peeling back so many layers that I became severely triggered, like anxiety attack triggered, which is something that can happen when we are doing the work. I absolutely had no idea I was going to be as triggered as I was during that program, during that particular semester, but I had a breakthrough. And with a breakthrough, you should have coping skills available. It was all new to me. I was writing a story that's in my newly released book, Root Work, Triumph Over Trauma. So that has been, several years getting it published under my name. It was published thankfully, with Negra Safa Press in 2017 or 2018, and I certainly thank those sisters for their small press and giving my story a home. But it is again published because it is so pivotal to my journey of self-love. Because for a long time I did not love myself because of the childhood sexual abuse. I didn't even know that's why I didn't love myself. I didn't like the way that I was acting out, and I just didn't seem to have any control over it. I hadn't addressed anything deeply enough yet, and that graduate program helped me do that. Um, it was amazing. And so a whole lot of self introspection, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, I was, sharing on depression and being on both sides of my family's during that talk 2 nights ago, and my experience with anxiety and depression, and how I have dealt with it and how I help clients deal with it as a creative arts um, holistic wellness life coach. So, um, a lot is brought up as we were talking last night. I began thinking, I keep saying last night, I mean 48 hours ago, but it really put me back to that story, um, to that time, and I have I just have questions that probably will not be able to be answered. But in 2017, I had started an Artist's Way group on Facebook, and a private group. And during one of the sessions, I said that I was, I really needed to make a phone call that day. It was a Sunday, and I needed to call my uncle, my father's brother, my deceased father's brother, and ask him if he had known what his father had done to me. And I asked him to please put my aunt on the phone as well, his wife, my aunt, rest in power. This was like 2016, 2017. And I asked them together if they knew about it. And they both said no. And what you have to know is first of all, how extremely close my father and my uncle were as brothers. They were best friends. And second of all, I just cannot imagine my father not discussing that with his brother, because my uncle had 4 children of his own. I can't see my mother not discussing that with my aunt, knowing how much she loved her 4 babies. And that's what I'm struggling with tonight. I asked the question, I got an answer. The answer is not sitting well with me. In addition, my mother, my father, and my uncle were teachers. And let me say this, it is included in the book, but When I told my mother, and I was about 6. And when Daddy got home that evening, they went into their bedroom to talk. And when the door opened, Daddy's suitcase was out. And the next morning, he flew down to Chattanooga, Tennessee to confront his father. Absolutely no way in the world I can even imagine my father not sharing that with my uncle. But again, I got the answer that I got. And sometimes when we get answers to questions around trauma filled situations, we don't get the answer that we're looking for. And we have to deal with that. So while I haven't written that poem yet about how I'm feeling inside, which is my stomach is like it's kind of in knots. I'm extremely anxious. You can't see because of the way the camera is facing, but on my monitor, I keep a picture of my cool cat of my daddy, so that I'm talking to him throughout the day while I'm working, um, and I have an altar with other family members on it, including my mother. But recently, I bought my daddy right here where um, I am actively working, thinking, creating. And I find I take comfort in that. So, while right before I decided to do this video, I, looked at the picture and had a conversation with my daddy. And yes, I do talk to the ancestors. I consult with them on a daily basis. I ask for protection over me and mine, for protection over you and yours. Um, I pray all day. You absolutely cannot have been brought through what I've been brought through, and just not give thanks to God, to that higher power, um, for bringing you over, out, and across, man. And so this is what it feels like to be triggered, um, and to intentionally utilize positive coping skills instead of negative things. Um, Gosh, my perpetrator, my grandfather, has been deceased since I was 12. And my acting out started on the way to his funeral. That is one decision that my parents made for me that I've never agreed with. I thought and still believe to this day that it should have been my choice to either go to his services or not. Um, and I absolutely changed as um, a person that went from being confident and happy to someone who I didn't recognize, just um, mean, nasty, promiscuous, and this is all as a preteen at 12, and it lasted for several years, and then ballooned into promiscuity, um, loving champagne to the point of becoming an alcoholic. Thank God for 17 years of sobriety and 11 of intentional celibacy, because I had to clear the plate in my mind. And these triggers, as I said, on the talk 2 nights ago, are going to happen because life is going to happen. And while you are in the healing process and you are doing your root work, or AKA shadow work, you're peeling back those layers, you're going to hit walls. And I say that as a life coach. I am not above hitting walls. I am not above being triggered. Please understand that. It is how we handle things I have boundaries set for myself, and um, where maybe a few years ago, I might have picked up the phone and it's 11 o'clock on the East Coast right now, which would be super late for my uncle. But I might have picked up the phone and called him and said, could we talk about this some more? I'm not gonna do that to him. He is um, in his 80s and trying to get his best life, and as he's healing, and I want to respect that. But at the same time, I got to deal with this trigger for me. Um, so I'm not calling my uncle. Um, I got his answer, but I will probably, continue to sit here and talk with my daddy and write a poem. I would love, for this to be um, put to rest, once and for all. But at 57, almost 58 years old, and I've only been dealing with it honestly and real for, like I said, somewhere between 12 and 20 years. When I say 12, that would be, um, I started grad school in 2008. My math is like crazy right now, but I started grad school in 2008, and so I started writing on it um, more deeply then. Before I just dabbled, but I've gone so far into this that um, you know the questions that I have about my perpetrator, like, because he was an only child, I just have questions that there just are not many people left that on the family tip of the elders that I think I've gotten all the information that I'm going to get, and I will let it suffice to say that a cousin, um, my dad's first cousin, did share with me um, mm, maybe 2014, that um, another cousin had been bothered, touched, messed with by him as well. So I say this, please keep in mind that it is never just one, never, ever, ever. Pedophilia is a mental illness, and people that are allowed do it and are allowed to get away with it continue it. It is a sickness that I feel should definitely be punishable and enforced at all times. And whoever the therapists and life coach are that work with that population, God bless you, because that is where I draw the line. I work with survivors. I work with those looking to be um, not to no longer be shrinking violets and to find their voices and reclaim their voice. So, this is what being triggered looks like um, when a person is willing to disclose. And so I invite you, because I'm going to be okay. I know what to do now, um, so that I'm not self harming and acting out and just going to the deep end. I am a survivor. At the end of the day, I am a survivor. And if you are a survivor looking for that toolbox to fill with positive coping skills, holla at your girl. MA in Guidance and Counseling, MFA in Creative Nonfiction Writing, real life survivor of childhood sexual abuse and childhood trauma that led to some crazy adult times until I decided to sit my ass down and get in check. And I thank the Creator for that. One love.